Welcome to another UCL Fantasy video. So here I'm going to be showing you the best wildcard team you can make, and incidentally it could end up becoming my actual team, as I'll be discussing later. So without further ado, let's head straight into the video. So Matchday 2 was very successful. I played the Limitless chip and it ended up being the right decision. I got 106 points and I went from around 300,000 in the world to around 3,000. So probably one of the biggest, I'd say, rank jumps I've ever experienced, and it was just such a great week. Everything seemed to be going right except for my goalkeepers. That was probably a mistake on my part. Looking back, I probably should have looked more at the Zenit goalkeeper, but still, you can't really complain when you get triple digits and have such a very productive week. Both Mendy and Courtois blanked, which was very surprising. I expected one of them to do pretty well, and it ended up being Szczesny, who I should have gone for in that Juventus-Chelsea game. Looking at the defence, so many players did well. Even Eder Militao. I'm not even going to speak about Gosens. I almost actually brought him in on the final day as a substitute, but I just decided against it. I just didn't have a really good feeling about Atalanta, or at least Gosens outscoring the players I would take off. And thankfully, I didn't bring him on because he got injured very early on in the game, so very unfortunate to anyone who got him in. But Eder Militao did all right. Even Bellingham with 5 points. I had the luxury of being able to take him out. And yeah, everyone in my starting lineup other than Mendy did really well. Thomas Meunier, what I really like about him is not only the attacking potential, but also the ball recoveries. And so far this season, he has recovered 18, which is absolutely incredible, and you get plenty of points for that. So Thomas Meunier is someone who, as he showed in Matchday 1, even if he doesn't get a clean sheet, he can get those ball recoveries, 11 in one match, and of course he did get an assist as well to boost that score. So Thomas Meunier is a great option, and probably the best one from Dortmund, although Akanji and Hummels are also pretty good. And then Joshua Kimmich, not the best. He's got 5 and 6 points. You probably would have expected more from him by now. It's actually been the other defenders like Upamecano and Sula who have been doing even better. But with Kimmich, he's got that attacking potential. This season, he hasn't been recovering the ball as much as he was, I'd say, in the last campaign. But it's very early days, only 2 match days, and he can definitely start to pick up. But it's just something to think about when you're kind of selecting these players. And then we have another cheap player who I got on my Limitless, yet still did the goods, Mazauri, and he actually got 8 points, so fantastic from him. And around that price, probably one of the best. The reasons why you might be a bit hesitant to get him in now is because he does face Dortmund back-to-back, and Haaland is back in the squad, scored yet again, what a surprise. And Dortmund are looking pretty decent, but still, Mazauri for match days 5 and 6 could be really good, and even against Dortmund he could get some points, so he's a very good player in this game, so someone to consider. And then this guy, probably one of the most informed midfielders in Europe, in Nkunku. This guy's just been absolutely insane. He now faces his former club back-to-back, and this guy's just been absolutely great. Even in the Bundesliga, still tearing it up. He's been doing it everywhere pretty much. So very happy with him, bringing him in 9 points. And of course, doesn't even come close to his hat-trick against Manchester City. Imagine scoring a hat-trick against Manchester City. You have to be some player, to be honest. So really impressed with him. And then Leroy Sané. So actually, talking about my captaincy, I did captain Benzema originally, and then because he only got the 1 goal and 6 points, I ended up captaining Lewandowski, and that was a really good move. But Sané was the one who ended up getting more points with 16. He got the Man of the Match award, and he got the goal and the assist. And of course, one of the goals was from outside the box, and of course, an extra point for scoring a goal, and also the clean sheet point. So Sané in the end was an absolute beast. Him and Salah are probably the ones I should have captained. Maybe Sané is maybe being a bit too, I'd say not absurd, but just he's not someone I realistically would have captained over Lewandowski. But Salah, maybe I should have gone for him instead. But I really like Benzema's form and also the Sheriff fixture. In the end, I can't complain too much, of course. These little extra points I could have gotten will probably play a part in the end of the campaign, but it's just not something I'm going to beat myself up about. And speaking of Salah, probably the most informed player in the world at the moment. He's absolutely incredible. He's even a good captaincy option against Atletico Madrid away. That's how good he is at the moment, and maybe I won't be going for it in the end. It could be something foolish, and of course, he does face Manchester United in FPL in game week 9, but still, he's the type of player you can just captain in any fixture at the moment, and he could probably do well. And then Sadio Mane, he was a bit of a punt, I'll admit, on my Limitless, but his record against Porto really enticed me, and I just think that he's a quality player on his day. And of course, he did actually score against Watford in a 5-0 win for Liverpool, and that front three for Liverpool is just absolutely amazing. And Firmino's actually got that hat trick, so yeah, that front three can definitely click. And there's also Jota to come in And Liverpool as a whole unit are looking really good at the moment. He's not someone I'd be bringing in, looking at the next few fixtures, but still, whenever he faces Porto, book that in. If you haven't played your Limitless yet and you're playing it in Matchday 5, for example, I probably would consider Mane against Porto. He just loves playing against them. And then looking at my front line, Karim Benzema, as I mentioned before, a bit disappointing, the form he's in and facing Sheriff, but Sheriff have been very good. They've been the kind of underdogs in this Champions League campaign so far. At least Benzema did score and I kept him on. I almost took him out for Gossens, and good thing that I didn't, to be honest. Then Lewandowski captain. Yeah, this guy is just, the fact that I'm disappointed slightly, you could say, with a double-digit horse says it all. This guy is absolute monster, the best goal scorer in the world at the moment, and yeah, literally, already so many points, and I should have got him in from the start, to be honest. I did kind of rue Matchday 1 not going with him, but Benfica back to back, I think he can do well in both games, despite how impressive Benfica have been with 2 clean sheets so far in this Champions League. And Dynamo Kiev and Barcelona after. Yeah, this guy, the only kind of thing I'd be worried about is rotation if Bayern wrap up the group early, which is a possibility, to be honest. And then lastly, Sebastian Haller, a bit like Nkunku, scored a hat-trick in Matchday 1, didn't quite live up to that kind of form, but still got a goal. You can't really complain too much, and Haller has been really impressive. I was a bit concerned about him because in the league games following his hat-trick, he just wasn't really scoring any goals, despite Ajax putting 8 past, 2 teams. So it's a bit concerning, and that's why I almost went without Haller, but I'll take the 7 points. It's not the worst in the world, and a very successful Limitless overall. That's how I did in Matchday 2. Have to say, very happy with it. The best Limitless, and also just the best game week I've ever had in UCL Fantasy. So obviously very happy with it. And now we're going to be looking at my team ahead of Matchday 3. So we're back down to reality, and yes, it just doesn't look anywhere near as impressive as my Limitless team in Matchday 2, but it's still not completely bad. Despite saying that though, I am seriously considering using the Wildcard, and I'll be explaining why. But I've got 2 decent goalkeepers in Kobel and Musso, but if you look at the fixtures this week, Kobel does play Ajax and of course in Matchday 4 as well. And if you haven't already seen, some of my kind of chip strategy guides and, all these tips and tutorials, check them out on my channel and on the playlist, because I actually break down the chip strategy and explain the exact best time to play your Limitless and your wildcard, especially depending on when you're looking to wildcard. So if you want a kind of wildcard, let's say in the knockout stages, you could actually play your Limitless in match days 3 or 4, which could be a really big advantage for you. Otherwise, wildcard in match day 3 if you're looking to do it early, because whichever kind of players you get in Matchday 3, they're going to have the exact same fixture in Matchday 4, and if you plan ahead for Matchdays 5 and 6 and build a good team for the remainder of the group stages, you're in a good position. And remember, you have these players, you have unlimited transfers heading into the knockout stages, so bear that in mind. But Kobel against Ajax, Dortmund have been pretty good. They're not the best defensively, but that Ajax fixture away, I'm not really backing a clean sheet there. And then I look at my other goalkeeper, Juan Musso. Good goalkeeper in real life, but the problem is he faces Manchester United away. Yes, United have been very poor. They just lost 4-2 to Leicester, but they can still score plenty of goals against any team. So I'm not really confident in any of my keepers, so that's already kind of a red flag and a warning sign. Then I look at my defenders. Diego Carlos, a ball recovery machine. He's a good player, but Sevilla aren't keeping the clean sheets, and Lille could still score a few. Even, obviously Sevilla are a better team than Lille, but the fact that Lille are at home, I'm a bit concerned about that, and I'm not that confident of a clean sheet for Sevilla. And then looking at my defence, the rest of my Chelsea defence, I'm really happy with it. I think a double against Malmo is completely fine. Let's see if Rudiger is actually fit in time for Matchday 3. I think he should be, but you never know. He wasn't fit enough to play Brentford in their 1-0 win, so that's something to think about. But of course, Azpilicueta and Rudiger, if they both start, they could do really well against Malmo. They can get the clean sheet, they can get some ball recovery points, and who knows, maybe an attacking return. So that's the best part of my team. But then we've got Wan-Bissaka. He's not flagged at the moment, but remember, he is suspended for yet another game. UEFA actually increased his ban from 1 to 2 games. So he's missing this first Atalanta game, should I say, and he will be back for Matchday 4. And even then, he's not someone I want to keep long term. As soon as pretty much I saw the first few minutes of Matchday 1 for Man United, I knew I made a mistake getting him in, to be honest. And then Moreno. Another big mistake, when starting my team. I should have got Roussillon if I wanted that 4 million defender, but I don't know, the way I saw it was Moreno was starting every single game for Villarreal. I thought they could keep a few clean sheets in the group stages. Facing young boys back-to-back isn't the worst, but I just don't expect Moreno to start. So to be honest, he's just not someone I want to have despite the really good fixtures on paper. So he is someone that I'm ultimately going to be getting rid of as well. So overall, so far, the 2 Chelsea defenders, assuming Rudiger is fit in time, I'm happy with. And of course, that turns to 1 if Rudiger is not able to make it. And then Jorginho so far hasn't been too impressive, at least compared to last season. But once again, we've got a very short or small sample size. And Malmo's a good fixture. He could be on penalties if he starts, and of course ball recoveries. That's what he's mainly good at, and that's pretty much it. In terms of goals and assists, he's not going to offer you too much, and there's kind of a few, I'd say, cheaper options who are offering that attacking potential, which is very much needed. And one thing you see with my team, I've got too many kind of ball recovery players with Alvarez, Casemiro and Jorginho. Maybe, say limiting it down to 2 is the best way to go, and then having more money for your attackers and someone like Salah in your midfield. Speaking of Salah, he is a no-brainer, and he was someone I considered not going for at the beginning of UCL Fantasy because he has a really tough group stage, but I don't know, there's something about Salah this season that I really liked, and I thought in terms of the midfielders, I don't trust too many of them, and Salah, he's someone I definitely trust as a fantasy asset, so I ended up going for him, and I don't regret that one bit. And on my Limitless, he was one of the first names on my team sheet, and he did really well. And Atletico, this is where he could struggle the most. But then again, what is struggling the most for Salah could just be a goal or an assist. You still get some points for that, to be honest. So Salah, definitely one of the first names on any team sheet, whether it's this or in my wildcard. Casemiro, very disappointing as well in terms of ball recoveries. Hasn't gotten too many, only 5 this season. And against Sheriff, actually, he only played 66 minutes and he got a yellow card. So he's been very disappointing. I would have obviously had him in my normal team if I hadn't played the Limitless. So I'm just so happy I played it, to be honest. And then İlkay Gündoğan, he is back from his injury, and he could play against Club Brugge and maybe he'll even score against them. He could maybe assume a more attacking role against the Belgian side, but once again, he's just not someone I want to have. He got an assist in Matchday 1 coming off the bench, which was obviously very good considering the circumstances, but Gündoğan is just not someone I think I want to have in my UCL fantasy team going forward unless I see more from him. And then Alvarez, he's a budget option. He could actually stay in my wildcard team because he's just so cheap. He's an enabler, and he got 5 points in Matchday 2. That's mainly what you want him for, the ball recoveries. And even in Matchday 1, if it wasn't for the yellow card, would have gotten at least 3 points. And he'll always get, I'd say, 3 ball recoveries or more, at least in most games. So Dortmund's not a great fixture, but with Alvarez, he could still get 4 or 5 points because of ball recoveries. So not the worst option in the world. Cristiano Ronaldo hasn't really been doing too well for Manchester United recently, but obviously in Champions League he scored in both games, including a dramatic late winner against Villarreal. He can do the same against Atalanta, but Manchester United just aren't in a good place right now, and I'd rather go for other premium attackers such as Lewandowski. I would just much rather have him over Ronaldo, and he's more of a reliable goal scorer, at least in the last few years. So Ronaldo, obviously great player, but don't trust Manchester United, and that's why I'm probably want to get rid of him despite the good fixtures. And then Kylian Mbappe against Leipzig, not a bad fixture. He actually scored an 87th minute winner for Paris Saint-Germain, and yeah, PSG was struggling. They were actually losing the game, I believe, but Mbappe made a difference. And yeah, once again, I think he can do well, but comparing him to the other strikers I can go for, like Lewandowski, do I want Mbappe over him? The simple answer is no, to be honest. But looking at a striker that I definitely want, it's Erling Haaland. Yes, he's facing Ajax twice, and that is a bit of a concern. Ajax are a good team, but I wouldn't be surprised if both games were high scoring. So players like Haaland, Haller, Tadic, Royce, all these players, Bellingham, they could do really well, and maybe the defenders are the ones who struggle, but Haaland's just kind of a set and forget, and we kind of pointed him out from the beginning of the group stage as one of the best options, if not the best, because he's got a favourable group and he's just a goal machine. So Haaland is just a no-brainer in my opinion, and his ownership has dipped because of his injury, but he is back now, and 45%, it does look a bit better than when it was around 60%. You don't have to go for him. Don't just pick a player because you're kind of scared of missing out or because he's a kind of part of the template and you don't want your rank to go down. But still, I just think he's a safe pick, and if you're unsure about strikers, Lewandowski and Haaland are just 2 really good options that probably won't let you down most weeks. So that's how my team is looking like. Erling Haaland will be my captain if I kind of keep this team, and in terms of transfers, I'll be honest, I haven't thought of it much because I'm pretty set on wildcarding, but of course I will make some plans just in case. I decide not to wildcard, and I'll let you guys know, of course. And in terms of the second day, who would I captain? Honestly, this is where it gets a bit more difficult. Maybe I just captain Cristiano Ronaldo, but I'm not too confident about him as a captaincy option. Yeah, he could score, but would his ceiling be that high? Maybe, but it's just I haven't seen enough from Manchester United and Ronaldo recently to really have enough confidence. But Haaland would definitely be my captain on the first day. I could also do it with Mbappe or Salah. They're both also really good options, but I think I'd be going for Erling Haaland, to be honest, despite how good Ajax are. And now we're looking at the best wildcard team you can make for Matchday 3, and this is very likely going to be my actual wildcard team. Otherwise, why would I call it the best wildcard team if I wildcard something else? But there could be a few changes. I have to say that, kind of preface this. I might make a few changes up until the deadline. I might find a few alternatives because there's maybe one or two players that you could improve on. But I think the general structure and some of these key players I definitely want in my side. So looking at the goalkeepers, I'll be honest, I'm not too confident in them. So Szczesny, he's got some good fixtures coming up. Chelsea's the only one I'd be worried about, especially considering the fact it's away and Stamford Bridge is a fortress. So that's not one I'm really happy about. But Zenit, 2 fixtures against them. I'd expect 1 clean sheet. And then Malmo in Matchday 6, another one where you could keep a clean sheet as well. I would rather have Mendy, if I'm being honest, and also looking at his heroics against Brentford, Mendy, absolutely fantastic performance. This season, one thing I've noticed is that he's actually making more saves, so I think his ceiling could even be higher compared to, obviously, last season, and this could actually translate to the Champions League, where it maybe hasn't happened as much as in the Premier League, where he's getting more bonus points and save points, but it could happen in UCL Fantasy as well, and he's just someone that you probably back for a clean sheet in every game, even against Juventus. So I've got 0.3 million in the bank with this team, so obviously ideally I'd just do Szczesny to Mendy and then have double Chelsea defence that way and have Juventus cover with De Ligt or Alexandro, but unfortunately I just don't have the money for that unless I downgrade someone else, and honestly I've already kind of made a few, I'd say, compromises in terms of having an ideal team structure and squad that I want. But Szczesny is in there, and then we've got this 4 million goalkeeper from Besiktas, Distanoglu, and he could do alright against Sporting Lisbon, but against Ajax and Dortmund just don't expect anything. And one thing I noticed is that he does play on a different day to Szczesny and also Mendy, so that's a good thing. Of course, you can rotate the goalkeepers that way. 4 million, he can maybe get you 2-3 points, maybe even 1 clean sheet along the way, so you can't complain too much, and in the end he's just bench fodder. Looking at the defence, I actually like this balance. It's maybe not the ideal team and not the best one. Obviously I'd love to have Trent Alexander-Arnold, Joshua Kimmich, or maybe Upamecano, these sorts of players, but I think Nicolas Süle, he's actually been matching Upamecano. He's been getting a lot of ball recovery points, and he's a really good option in my opinion. Obviously, let's wait and see. Is he going to play every single game? Maybe not, but I think Süle is a good option, and he's only 2% owned. No, not many people are considering him. He's not really, I'd say, an attractive pick, but the ball recoveries is what makes the difference in UCL Fantasy. It makes these centre-backs, defensive midfielders and defensive fullbacks more viable options compared to FPL, for example. So Süle is actually someone I really want, and he might make it into my final wildcard team. The same goes for Thomas Meunier. I talked about it earlier. Ajax isn't a good fixture, and of course he does face them twice. But with Meunier, he's got the attacking potential, and he can get some ball recoveries to really just kind of boost his avenues for points, and he can literally just, even if he has a bad game or if Dortmund have a bad game, he can still get 4 points or more at least, even against a tough opposition like Ajax. And another thing I like about Thomas Meunier is he's only 6% owned, and I like that about, when you wildcard, you're getting these defenders from good teams with a lot of avenues to points, especially ball recoveries, and they have low ownership. I think that could be really crucial to cap off the group stages, which is where you're going to make the bulk of your points in a way. And of course, you want to have a really good start to UCL Fantasy, and you want to build on that. And then looking at Azpilicueta, I think he's a no-brainer once again. He's nailed. He can play right wing back as a centre back, and he's just a kind of a Chelsea player that is going to start most games. Same with Rudiger. And I'd love to have both Rudiger and Azpilicueta, but unfortunately with this team structure I can't afford both of them, and even then I'd probably prefer having Mendy in goal. But 2 games against Malmo he could do well, even Juventus, and Zenit away isn't the easiest fixture, but just that doubleheader against Malmo is worth having Azpilicueta for that alone. His ownership's decent, it's not too high but it's also not too low, but he's a good option. I'm surprised not more people have him, to be honest. 5 million he started at, 5 million, and it's just absolutely crazy. In FPL, for example, he's 6.1 currently, but Azpilicueta a great option in UCL Fantasy, especially with ball recovery points. And then looking at the rest of the defence, we've got De Ligt, and this could be a bit of a clash in matchday 5 because he does face Chelsea. So if I did go with double Juventus defence with Szczesny and De Ligt, or if I even go for double Chelsea defence, that could be a bit of a clash and I might lose points along the road. But just that double head against Zenit, I think De Ligt is promising. And once again, with most of these options in defence, the ball recoveries is what I'm looking at. I would ideally want Alexandro, who actually got 10 ball recoveries so far this season and has the attacking potential, but I just can't afford it, to be honest. And De Ligt is still a good alternative, and under Allegri he's been playing every single game. Sometimes Chiellini's benched, sometimes it's Bonucci, so De Ligt is actually a really good choice, someone to consider. And so far this season, as you can see, some of these players are actually among the top highest scoring players in UCL Fantasy, so just take a look at them, of course. So yeah, here you go. You've got Adeyemi, who I'll be talking about very soon. But it's not just all about who scored the most points and get them into your team, because you've got to look at the fixtures, you've got to look at how they get their points. Is it sustainable? And also just other different factors such as their league form. So there's a lot to think about, but obviously points are a good indication of what they can do in the future too. And speaking of points, we've got Roussillon, who at 4 million, 4.1 now, really good choice. I'm not backing a clean sheet against Salzburg, if I'm being honest, but around his price, there's no one else that I would prefer. And I just think he's a good bench fodder option and a great enabler. That's the main thing about him. He can get some ball recovery points, not too many, but still decent, and maybe a bit of attacking potential in there too. It's not something I'd expect, but Wolfsburg are actually decent defensively, so definitely a team that you could get one defensive asset in. Maybe you can get their goalkeeper Casteels, or you can go for Roussillon or Mbabu or one of these other options. They're all good in my opinion. And then looking at the midfield, we've got two budget ones in Alvarez. He's maintained his spot. Once again, just an enabler. I'm not going to talk about him too much, I already have. And he can still do well around his price. Just don't expect miracles from him. And then the other bench fodder option is Barrios. From last season as well, I liked him a lot. He just offers you that security of ball recoveries and points. So even if he's facing Juventus or Chelsea, and unfortunately he does face both of them 3 times across the next 4 matches, it doesn't matter because he gets those ball recovery points, and he's got 5 points in both games, 17 balls recovered, and I'm telling you, he's capable of more. He shows it for Colombia in the World Cup qualifiers. He shows it for Zenit and also his previous clubs like Boca Juniors. This guy is a good player, and that's his main job in the midfield. He's aggressive and he just wins the ball back and he passes it to players with better technical ability. So Barrios, just if you want someone cheap and you're not really sure, just go for him. But of course, there are different choices you can go for. You might want to get a bit more of an attacking player like Curtis Jones, but if not, Wilmer Barrios just offers you that security of minutes and also ball recoveries. So I think he's just a tried and tested option in UCL Fantasy. Then we've got Leroy Sané, who I think Nagelsmann has just found something. He's found that switch in Sané and he's kind of resuscitated his career, to be honest. And Sané, a great performance in Matchday 2. He actually, I think, completed the most take-ons of any player in the Champions League so far this season in a single match, and he's just been on fire. Even in the league, he's getting goals and assists. So Leroy Sané, I definitely recommend him if you're kind of unsure about his price bracket. I'll be honest, I'm not really too infused by the other options, and Sané at the moment is looking like the standout, so I may end up going for him. But if not, I'll admit I might actually downgrade him to a cheaper midfielder and then use that money to upgrade maybe one of my forwards or also one of my defenders. So that is still something I'm thinking about, but Leroy Sané around his price bracket at the moment is looking like the best option. And of course, same with any other option that I obviously discuss. Let me know if you think there's a different choice or player that could do really well and that you think is better than what you see on screen. And then Jude Bellingham. I'll be honest, I'd rather have Nkunku despite the PSG fixtures coming up and also Manchester City in a few weeks' time or in a few months' time. But Jude Bellingham is still a good choice. He's playing as a defensive midfielder, but still gets a lot of, I'd say, attacking responsibilities and freedom. And he does face Ajax twice. Once again, I think it could be a high-scoring game in both occasions, especially when we're looking at the first game in Matchday 3. And against Sporting Lisbon and Besiktas, he could do really well too. And of course, he has produced returns against both teams, including a whopping 15 points against Besiktas. So definitely one to consider, Jude Bellingham. And then we've got Mohamed Salah. Kind of one that doesn't need too much introduction. He's the most informed player in the world at the moment, alongside maybe Karim Benzema, and just get him in your team, to be honest. I know it's Atletico Madrid, but who else can offer you just that security and consistency? Maybe Lewandowski and Haaland, but in terms of midfielders, there's no one, to be honest, so there's no contest. And now we're looking at the strikers. Speaking of Haaland, really good choice. Maybe his ceiling won't be too high in fixtures like Ajax, But against Sporting Lisbon, of course, it's a bit of a shame we didn't see him play in Matchday 2 against Sporting, but in Matchday 5, he could do really well. Once again, I said this before, and I'll say it again, if Haller can score 4 goals against Sporting Lisbon, what makes you think that Haaland can't, to be honest? And even against Besiktas, he did well against them last time. He can do well again if he does start that game. Obviously, just bear in mind, in Matchday 6, there could be a lot of rotation. That's why some people do wildcard in Matchday 6, but I probably would try to avoid that. And I'm looking to wildcard either in Matchday 3 or in the quarterfinals or semi-finals heading into the knockout rounds, to be honest. Of course, there are a lot of options you can go for up front, but I don't want to overcomplicate it. I just have so much faith in Haaland and Lewandowski. Same with Salah in midfield. That's why I'm probably going to be going for them on a wild card. You can still go for Lukaku. It's not all kind of rosy for the other options. Mbappe, kind of hit and miss in Champions League fantasy so far, but of course he's a great player. Messi hasn't really hit the ground running at PSG, despite scoring a great goal against Manchester City. And then the same goes for Neymar, who hasn't really had a great season so far. But of course, Cristiano Ronaldo, another one who's been scoring goals as well. But Haaland and Lewandowski for me are just the two best up front. And Lewandowski, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually got a double-digit return in every single game. Do I think it will happen? No, but it's possible. And that's the kind of level Lewandowski's at the moment. And of course, there is Karim Benzema. If you want someone a bit cheaper, you can go for him. Sebastian Haller, despite facing Dortmund twice, he's also a good choice. And Depay. I know Barcelona are terrible, but Depay hasn't hit the ground running yet at Barcelona, but I think he can get some attacking returns very shortly. But otherwise, if you're willing to pay that premium price, go for Lewandowski and Haaland. And now we've gone for a kind of cheaper attacker who, I'll be honest, I haven't thought about until after seeing his Matchday 2 performance as well, on top of his Matchday 1 heroics as well. So Adeyemi, he's looking really good at the moment. He is facing Wolfsburg twice, and he does face Sevilla in Matchday 6. But to be honest, does it really matter? He did really well in Matchday 1 against Sevilla 2. And I actually think, he missed a penalty as well. So he actually earned 3 penalties against Sevilla, which is just crazy, when you put it like that. He won 3 penalties and he missed one. So imagine the score he could have got in Matchday 1-2. And he got player of the match in that. And in Matchday 2 against Salzburg, he scored twice and he earned the penalty. So this guy, I've never seen someone who's earned 4 penalties in 2 match days. Manchester United, sign him up. You are in a bit of trouble at the moment. This guy is looking really good at the moment. And obviously, look, he's not someone I have a lot of faith in. Will he continue this all the way? Is he going to keep on earning penalties? Maybe not. But still a good option around his price and below. I'm not thinking of too many who are better than him. Of course, if you can stretch out to an 8 million forward or more, you can go for Depay or Haller. But if not, and you need that money elsewhere, Adeyemi, I think, is the one to go for at the moment. Of course, there will be different options popping about and making a case for themselves. But at the moment, it's looking like Adeyemi. And I actually like the structure, having 2 premiums, 1 cheaper option, and then spreading the funds elsewhere. But one kind of problem I'd say with my team is that I would rather have double Chelsea defence than having double Juventus. And I could still go for some City defenders or Trent, for example, and maybe take money from one position, like one of my strikers, or one of my midfielders like Sane, and then get a premium defender and also manage to get the goalkeeper that I actually want. But of course, there's no such thing as a perfect team. I just think this is one of the best, if not the best, wildcard team you can make at the moment, and I might make a few adjustments if I'm being completely honest. What do you think of this wildcard team? Let me know down in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this video or found it useful, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. And of course, if you're not really happy with one player or you prefer another option instead, go for them. Obviously, back your gut. But in my opinion, this is one of the best sets of players you can go for, and the team structure, I think, is really good. That doesn't mean it's the right one. It's the only one that you can play UCL Fantasy in. There are different ways to play the game and to have different formations and different players and target different clubs. But it doesn't matter. I think this is one of the best teams you can make. And of course, feel free to let me know what you think in the comment section below, as I said before. And also feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, Dylan_RCM. It's the same as my YouTube handle. Really appreciate everyone who joined in on the FPL live stream earlier. Obviously, it was a very early deadline stream around 9:30 a.m. and it went very well, of course, and a lot to talk about in FPL as well. And of course, thank you to everyone who's been watching the UCL Fantasy content. I'm also going to be uploading a best limitless team, so that'll be up shortly. In terms of the team selection, this is the team selection pretty much. It's molded with the best wildcard team because in, I'd say, the most cases, or at least the most likely scenario, I am going to wildcard. But if I don't, you'll see my final team in the deadline stream or in a community post on YouTube. Same with Twitter. So don't worry about that. And yeah, that'll be all the content for UCL Fantasy. Let me know, of course, ways to improve and different kind of video ideas and types that you want to see. Really appreciate all the support, and I'll see you next time.